Today, on Energy Contact, we're going to take a look at harmony and dissonance. They define the difference between music and noise at one level, but we're looking at other things. We're about to discover what harmony and dissonance have to do with your aura, with your energy field, and with your health, happiness, growth, and self-improvement. So make a note, you're about to become attuned. Right now, on Energy Contact. Hello, and welcome to Energy Contact. My name is Joseph Willenbrink. Thank you for joining me today, and thank you to the production staff here in the studio for helping me get my message out to you. Energy Contact is a series I'm presenting to you as a public service. It's about attaining health, growth, happiness, self-improvement, and realizing your full potential. It's designed to present you a new way of looking at yourself, and a new way of looking at the world around you. We're talking about things that have to do with making an energetic contact with yourself internally and with your environment. There's no difference between the body, the mind, the spirit, the emotion, the intellect, the ego. There's no difference between mass and energy. These things are all exactly the same. There is something about us that just loves to categorize and classify and separate. Put each one of these things in their own little neat separate file cabinet. But in fact, all that health and self-improvement we're talking about take place when we do just the opposite. It happens when we put these things together, when we make an energetic contact between the physical world and the unseen one. We're presenting on these programs a brand new paradigm that's thousands of years old. We're presenting extraordinary topics for ordinary people. And let's move right ahead with that. Let's bring up a slide. Everyone please understand that I am not a doctor. This show is not a medical show, medical advice show, medical help show. It's not a medical anything show. Couldn't be further from it. Now, I might call myself an energy healer, a chakra healer, things like that, but state, federal, and local governments absolutely do not. They call me no such thing. It's important to understand that. There's a lot of important information on your screen right now. Please read all of that, if you will, with your full attention. And when you've got it down, now would be a great time to locate a pencil and paper. Now, here's why you want to do that. At the end of this program, we're going to run some credits, and on those credits, there's going to be contact information for me. Now, I invite and encourage you to contact me. I'm sort of hoping that something I have to tell you today will inspire you to want to do that. But in order to contact me, you're going to need that contact information. And in order to get it, you're going to need a pencil and paper. So please locate those things now. All right, let's come back up here. Today's program is show number 68. And if you're tuning in for the first time today, well, thanks and welcome. I think you'll enjoy the show. These shows are sequential, they build. We're talking about things today that we've introduced and explained and defined previously. However, I'm doing my very best to make every show have a lot of value on a standalone basis. There's some ramp-up stuff, some up-to-speed things you will have missed out on. However, we'll get you right back up to speed. And when you do enjoy the show today, if what you see piques your interest, well then look around, because there will be earlier shows airing at later times. They'll either be re-airing right here on this channel, or they'll be on in different days and different times in different areas. And if you look for them, I'll appreciate it. All right, and now we've come to the part of the show where I get to introduce my co-host to you. Let's get my pal Slim on camera. This is Slim, and Slim is here for a reason. Since we're talking about what it is that energy contacts in the physical self, we have to know a few things about a few things, don't we? We have to know something about energy, and this program is certainly a program about energy. But all of that energy out there somewhere does us no good whatsoever. It does us no good until we bring it into contact with something. My pal Slim here is here to help us understand what that thing is that the energy contacts. Remember, a body without energy is just a corpse. And energy without a body, well, it might be a number of cool things, but none of them are human. All right, Previously on Energy Contact, we've been looking at a number of invisible yet very real things: electricity, radio waves, LANs, WANs, those wireless internet signals you got running through your house, cell phone signals, love, peace, anger, happiness. The list is endless. And we have seen that what is visible and what is invisible have absolutely nothing to do with what is real and what is unreal. Just because you can see it doesn't mean that it's real, and just because you cannot see it does not mean that it's not real. So knowing this, you have begun to experience yourself in a brand new and in a far more accurate way. The way Einstein saw you, the way the old mystics saw you too. Basically as this collection of bags of nothing that really have no real physical substance at all. You've come to see yourself not as this physical thing that happens to have a little bit of energy, but as an energy being that just happens to have a body. So it's the physical part that's the unreal part. That's what we've seen. It's a hologram of sorts, a projection, an optical illusion. It's that energetic world of wavelengths and frequencies and vibrations. That's all that's real. That's all that matters. It's that frozen steam that Einstein spoke about so clearly, and yet so many people, including people who study Einstein, who use his theories, even teach his theories every day, are either unable or unwilling to consider. Now, what Einstein discovered has plenty to do with that invisible body intellect we've been talking about since the very first episodes of Energy Contact. All those things that we were always taught were brain things: memory, thought, reason, recall, intellect, intelligence. All those things, in fact, inhabit every cell of our body. They permeate us. They saturate every single cell of our body. And so this physical body then is really just a somewhat unreal projection of that very real body intellect. Now there's a vital energy that connects all this, as we've seen, and our investigation of that is what's led us to where we are now, to our study of chakras and auras and kundalini energy and things like that. We know that the presence of this vital energy, this chi, this prana, whatever it is you want to call it, it is that invisible thing that keeps us alive. That's precisely what it is. And when it leaves us, we're dead. So it stands to figure, doesn't it, that if we have more of it, or if we make it flow more freely through us, we will be more alive than if we do not. Now, it's the machinations of all of this energy moving around that generate this field around us that we have come to call the aura. Energy, all of this energy, travels in snake-like, undulating, oscillating motions through energy vessels called nadis that we've seen. Now, these other things that we've seen, these chakras, are what open and close the nadis. But it's the mind that opens and closes the chakras. And it's the body intellect that opens and closes the mind. Opening in chakras is not the goal, remember. It's just a way to get there. There are great saints from time immemorial, saints throughout history, who never heard of a chakra, had no idea what a chakra was, and they did just fine in their physical, mental, spiritual, emotional evolution. It's important to keep that in mind. But they did find a way, either consciously or innately, to regularly and freely move unseen invisible energy through their physical selves. And that brings us to today. Today we want to continue and further our knowledge of some of these mystical esoteric topics. Auras, chakras, kundalini, shakti, prana, things like that. These words have all just become New Age babble. Just babble that has no substance and meaning at all to a lot of the people who use them, to a lot of the people who throw them around. No substantive meaning other than to identify them as kooks to everybody else. We want to go beyond that. We're doing better things. So we're looking at mysticism through scientific eyes. And we're seeing this ancient stuff in maybe dry, practical, even ho-hum ways. We're continuing our understanding of your aura today. And to do that, we have to look a little bit more at all the properties of all these energy fields and these snake-like properties of energy. But understanding this is not the goal. The goal is to get to what all this aura, chakra, kundalini business has to do with your health, your growth, your happiness, your self-improvement, and the realization of your full potential, your true self. So we're looking at science today but it's not our goal to give you a PhD in physics. What part of our goal is, a lesser goal albeit, is to get through a false perception that this entire subject matter was all dreamed up by hippies. That's what a lot of people think, huh? Auras and chakras, just a bunch of stuff dreamed up by hippies high on mushrooms. But that's not the case. This stuff is just basic physics. There's nothing flaky about it at all. As we're seeing, this stuff is as scientific as E equals MC squared. We're going to keep all of our science at a general audience level today. So you physics professors, you bear with me. Anyone who wants further details, complete with the calculus and the derivations, you're welcome to contact me. Now, keep in mind too that while all this analysis is worthwhile, it also means that to some extent we're in the process of classifying and categorizing. And that's sort of dangerous territory here on Energy Contact, isn't it? Please remember that that is a process that can take us away from our goal rather than towards us if we're not real careful. All right, that's where we're headed today, but first, we've gotten to the part of the show where we get to take a break for a second, take a deep breath, because we've arrived at the part of the show where we get to take our virtual field trip, a journey in our mind's eye. Today, visualize that you're with a piano player, and he's seated there next to a grand piano. Now, grand pianos, to the ones of you that don't know, they're the ones that sort of sit flat on the floor and they've got that lid that you can put up at an angle so that you can look down into the string board. So that our piano player is there, and he's telling us that the sounds that you hear as he plays are really just a function of the vibrations of the strings. Now, that's not news to you. You've always sort of known that. But then he hits a single note as you're looking in the back of that piano there. He hits a single key, and as you're looking down there, you notice that there's strings vibrating other than the ones from the key that he just hit. That while most of the strings are completely still, you can see a bunch of other ones vibrating without being touched. Even though he directly only caused a couple of them to move, all up and down the whole string board, strings are moving. Now, this pianist tells you that when you hit a string of a certain frequency, similar strings vibrate with it. It's called sympathetic harmony. Strings that are of what we'll call a less compatible frequency stay completely still. Also, if you hit two keys that have this, what we're calling incompatible frequency, you get an interference with each other's vibration, resulting in less vibration, resulting in an unpleasant sound. You've heard people make unpleasant sounds with musical instruments before. Well, that's the physics of it. And so you know too that good sounds and bad sounds can come from the same piano. Just depends on who's playing. This is all the basics for harmonics, overtones, timbre, things like that. And it's all these subtle sympathetic harmonies going on. Those are the things that make the difference between a quality instrument and a cheap one. All right, hold that thought. It is absolutely impossible to consider your body as something separate than spirit, emotion, intellect, so on and so forth. It's impossible to do. It's against the laws of nature and physics. But just for sport, just for fun, and just for a second or two, let's pretend that your body does exist that way. That being the case, your body's just a machine. Your surgeon's right. It consumes fuel, it does work, it passes off byproducts, it does all the things a machine does. But even if you were the same as those bolts and gears machines, you would still require energy to operate. Without energy, no machine functions. Eliminate the power source, pull the plug, remove the batteries, disconnect the gas line, whatever, and the machine is absolutely useless. It's just a dead machine. It's a corpse. So you don't have to be a human, or you don't even have to be alive to have an energy field around you. Every machine does, unless it's completely broken or completely disconnected. In you, that energy field is your aura. The human energy field is just the energy that the human machine generates and resonates. But unlike those bolts and gears machines, we got some other things going on. We've got body, mind, spirit, emotion, intellect, intelligence. We've got memory, recall, reason, logic, all those body intellect functions. Now, if you've got the right meter, you can measure these fields. Just like you can measure the electric field around a microwave oven, a computer, a car, a factory machine, a television, anything like that. The human energy field can be perceived and measured, and even seen by some. Now, we've been looking at chakras recently, and we saw that you can think of chakras as the skeleton of the aura. And in sort of onion layer-like fashion, the mind is the skeleton of the chakras, and the body intellect is the skeleton of the mind. But it's easier perhaps, at least for just now, to think of your aura as the energy field around the machine that is you. Now, Einstein, like those ancient mystics, told us that energy moves in an undulating, oscillating, snake-like manner, and that it is precisely this movement that generates the energy field. Anybody who's had elementary physics understands this. Energy shimmies in wavy lines. It doesn't go straight. It moves like a snake moves. Let's bring up a slide. We'll show you a picture of a piece of equipment that measures this. On your screen, or about to be on your screen, there it is an oscilloscope. You've seen pictures of them before on old 1950s sci-fi movies, if nothing else. Here's the definition of one. An oscilloscope is an electronic instrument that produces an instantaneous trace corresponding to the oscillations of voltage and current. All right, let's come back here. So everything that has energy has voltage and current, and most things do have energy, and everything that has voltage and current oscillates, including machines, the electronic field that empowers them, and you. Every atom of you, in fact. Now, these waves can be smooth and flowing, or they can be choppy and erratic and sharp and chaotic. In a nutshell, it goes like this. Smooth equals good, jagged equals bad, and absent equals dead. Medical monitors, those vital signs machines you see in the hospital, they're basically oscilloscopes. And if you ever have to be hooked up to one, let's just hope that you get a nice smooth flowing line. Why? Because if you get a jagged line, or at least a line that's too jagged, you're very sick. And if you get a nice straight even smooth one, you're dead. Those old mystics didn't really understand this, not in a Western science sense. They understood it in other ways, perhaps. They didn't understand physics and trigonometry, oscilloscopes, stuff like that, though. But they did understand how snakes move. And they understand how energy moves. They referred to a wave-like energy called Kundalini Shakti, and the word Kundalini means snake. Now, science has understood this oscillating, undulating energy stuff, for a few hundred years. Congratulations. Those old mystics knew it 8,000 years ago. So what we want to do, what this means to us, is we want to smooth out our energy waves. We want to, just like brushing our hair, comb them out, untangle them, make them all go the same direction. That has something to do with what sympathetic harmony is all about. Let's look at the physics of waves. Let's bring up another slide. We'll look at them the way your physics professor does. What you see on your screen now is the entire electromagnetic spectrum. All the waves represented here are running through the universe every minute of the day, and many of them are running through you. Now, most of these waves are innocuous, neither good for you nor bad for you. Some of them are healthy, and some of them will kill you. It's just a function of the wavelength and the concentration, but all of them are ambiental. They're all running through you. As we'll see, it has really not only to do with the concentration and the wavelength, it also has to do with harmony and dissonance. Now, if you look towards the top of that thing, you can see something that looks like those oscilloscope lines. That's how energy moves. Now look there inside, if you can see that little red circle next to those color bars on the top there. In that long spectrum, that is the visible range. It's just that tiny little block there in the middle. So all the colors, everything you see, in fact, are all in that tiny little range. In that tiny little area are all the colors of the rainbow. That's what that rainbow is doing down there. which is to say it's the entire visible spectrum. That's what the colors of the rainbow are. They're the entire visible spectrum. Now everything else, if you go back up top there, everything else on that whole gray bar, all that stuff is just as real and just as pervasive. It's just invisible. So there's a lot going on that your eyes aren't seeing. All right, let's come back up here. Now what does all that have to do with your aura? Well, the aura is just the energy field around that machine that you call you. You've heard somewhere that the aura lies just outside your physical body. Well, that's correct. But if you look at it from the other context, the aura lies somewhere just outside of that visible range. And some people can see that. There's a lot going on in the universe, though, that we aren't seeing. And we want to understand the science of that. Physics 101 tells us that every electric field has a magnetic field that runs perpendicular to it, and that every magnetic field has an electric field that runs perpendicular to that. Now that sounds like we're starting to get a little complex here, so let's see if we can make it simple. I'm going to get my magnets here. Here are my magnets. And you can see that there's a force between them. Huh? Can you see that? And now if you turn one of them around, the force doesn't change, but a different thing happens. If I do that too hard, one of my magnets will be on the floor. The force is the same. These magnets don't get mad at each other. One of them doesn't turn evil, but yet now they're repelling. Can you see the distance between them there? So there's something harmonic about that and something dissonant about that. There's all sorts of energy fields, invisible fields all over the place, and they're all passing through you right now. And at the same time, these energies are coming into you from the outside. You're generating waves of your own, and you're pushing waves out from the inside. And all those waves that are coming into us are coming out right now. All those waves that are shining out of me and you, they're shining out of you and me right now too. At least they better be, because when they stop, you're dead. Remember, none of these things go straight out though. They move out in little wavy lines, snake-like lines, like the oscilloscope has, like Kundalini energy has. All sorts of things moving through us that we can't see. Those magnets generate a field. There's a field going through me right now. Wristwatch? Think your wristwatch generates a field through you? My wristwatch is generating a field through me right now, and so is yours if you're wearing one. How about this? Cell phone? All sending waves through me right now. Does it mean something? Well, of course it means something. Everything means something. Little things mean a little something. Big things mean a big something. So should I take my watch and throw it in the river? Should I move into the woods? Well, I don't think so. I think that might be a little extreme. But it's important to keep in mind that cancers and autoimmune disorders come from everyday environmental factors. Science has shown that these days. In fact, the rise of these types of diseases is directly proportional to the rise in technology. I will take off my watch. But let's not digress. We want to get to what all this has to do with your aura. When an external wave goes through us in a manner that is harmonic, that agrees with us, if you will, good things happen. And that yields peace and health and growth and happiness and self-improvement. When an external wave goes through you in a discordant fashion, then bad things happen. And that yields mutated cells and chaos and anger and frustration and things like that. Now, if we had music lessons with our friend the piano player, he would tell us all about harmony and dissonance, harmony and cacophony. They basically explain the difference between beautiful music and terrible noise. If you've ever heard about those studies, every now and then they talk about them. They'll put plants in a room, and first they'll play Mozart, and the plants will do good, and then they'll play death metal, and the plants will do bad. Have you heard about those things? Have you heard about the Messages in Water book? Well, if you're familiar with those things, that's basically what they're talking about. All of these things are waves. That's all that's real. Music waves, sound waves, watch battery waves, lights, colors, you name it. And that brings us back to sympathetic harmonies, to overtones and harmonics. What are they? Well, without getting into too much detail, overtones are sounds that are on the top of other sounds. I know that's vague, just roll with me if you will. In music, there's a second harmonic that's more subtle than the bass tone, a third harmonic that's more subtle than the second one. And all of these things are basically what give music resonance. Your ears can't really discern them as sounds, but they can discern them as a quality of the pitch, as timbre. But harmonics aren't just music, they're physics. They permeate that entire electromagnetic spectrum. If you play an instrument, you are schooled in the sound quality of harmonics. If you've studied physics, well then you're schooled in the fact that wavelength is inversely proportional to frequency. But whatever harmony and dissonance do in us, we can see it in our energy layers, in our aura, before it goes on to the physical us. Recall, we've seen that our aura has layers like an onion. Let's bring up a slide. We can see our buddy the aura man here. Also, we've learned that every magnetic field has an electric field that comes from it, and vice versa. Every electric field has a magnetic field that comes from it. So on it goes until the layers go down. Those layers of what you see on that fellow there, that's the layers of the aura, the layer-like effect that you see there. Imagine on this picture that those layers are coming out of that fellow there, then that they're oscillating, that they're in motion, they're moving out like waves do, like ocean waves do, because they are. That's exactly what happens. Let's move right to our next slide. The aura has layers then, and just like the harmonics we've discussed, the second layer is more subtle than the first, the third more subtle than the second, and these pictures sort of give you that effect. We're seeing that the physics and the light theory and the music theory, everything is all taking us to the exact same place. And what we'll find in that place, other than a gazillion other things, is your aura, your subtle bodies, as some call it, your energy field. Why? Because they're all the same. There's absolutely no difference. All right, let's come back here. The old yogis who refined their division through meditation, through direct contact, if you will, with what was going on in the universe, they didn't use the term aura. They didn't have a word for aura. They referred to subtle bodies, and they knew that each of those layers we just saw is an independent, very different from one another, subtle body. Those layers on that fellow have something in common with those strings on the piano, with those harmonic layers. If we are internally dissonant in our harmonics, we'll be sick, sad, weak, ugly, all sorts of things like that. However, if we're internally harmonious, we'll be happy, healthy, empowered. And that's where we're getting to, and we're going to look at that a lot more next time. But for today, we're out of time. Thank you for joining me. I wish you peace and positive energy and a healthy life in Energy Contact.